Morning, everyone. Councillor Mike Quigley, Chairman of the Planning and Rights of Way Committee. I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting, which is taking place here at County Hall and being broadcast live on YouTube. We take the minutes of the last meeting and our members content they are a true and accurate record. If all those that are in favour, anyone again? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously then. Move on to apologies, but before we do, can I just, it would be remiss of me not to thank Jim for his service as Vice Chairman of this committee during my tenure and wish him well in whatever role he's going to take up. But no, thanks, Jim. Your experience is probably as greater than mine, if not similar to mine. I think we've both been around a good many years on planning, certainly at district, and I've been working with the Planning Advisory Service for some years previously, but that's all in the past. And can I welcome Councillor Francis Perdue-Hora, who is the new Vice Chairman of this committee. And it's a very short tenure because I think this is probably maybe the last meeting. I don't know. I think there's one more scheduled, but whether or not there's any business, we'll find out at a later date. So apologies for absence. Are there any apologies? Councillor Rachel Madden I have for other reasons, and Councillor Andy Meakin for other reasons. Is there anybody else to note? No? We'll move on then to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest by members and officers. First of all, members, anyone got any interest to declare on the agenda?
Yeah, just for the first main item on the agenda, just to say that I'm the Deputy Cabinet Member for Education, but I've not had any involvement in that project at all, so I don't believe I'm predetermined.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Moxon. Anyone else? Anyone, officers, anyone, any declarations to make at this meeting? No? Lobbying? I haven't had any notification of lobbying. Anybody else had any lobbying on the items on the agenda? No? So we move on then to the first substantive item, which is the Chuter Primary School Annex Phase 3 expansion, which is the Chuter School in Fernwood. This application seeks planning permission to increase the size of the school from a one entry form with 210 places to a two form entry with 420 places. The recommendations are set out in the report. Can I have a seconder for the recommendations? That's a forum. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much. Then I invite Emily Dodd, Principal Planning Officer, to present the report and any further information relevant to the application.
Thank you, Chairman.
Can I ask that we speak up? I know we're being picked up on the microphone, but members around the room may find it difficult to hear if we don't elevate our voices.
Planning application is for an extension to the existing school at Fernwood. It will take it from one form entry of 210 pupils to two form entry of 420 pupils. And this is part of a planned phased development of the school site to serve Fernwood housing development. The land was allocated as part of the master plan for the wider housing allocation, and the proposed extension would provide 8 classrooms with associated circulation space, toilets, etc., as well as sports pitches and playgrounds. Committee Plan 2 on the screen shows the extension in blue. It will be constructed at right angles to the existing school. Main entrance fronts onto Hunters Road to the south-west, with the existing and proposed extended parking areas to the front of the school for staff. Existing pitches and playground areas are to the south of the school, and the proposed new sports pitches associated with the extension will be to the north, with further pitches along the eastern side along Hollowdyke Lane. So the pitches and play areas are shared by the whole school, and the school will operate as one site once built and occupied. The elevational drawings show the building is proposed to be single storey with a mix of brickwork and render, similar to the existing school. This photograph here just shows you some context of where the extension would go. So we are in the school site at the moment, looking over towards Hunters Road, which are the houses in the background. And the proposed extension would come roughly across the front of the screen where the mouse is indicating, into the land to the right-hand side, which is the extension side. So it would join onto the school, which is shown on the next photo. So this is where the extension would project out from. And then the next photo we have is looking from the existing school site over the site where the extension would go, which is scrubby grassland at the moment, towards new housing. I have to put a sections drawing on here. Just wanted to draw to members' attention the slope of the site. So the levels do alter by about 3 metres on site, sloping down from the existing school site. So if you can see on section AA, right hand side there is the extension and the slope down to the pitches, and then on the next one down, which is section BB, the extensions to the left hand side with the slope down to the left. So it just demonstrates those changes in levels. And again, I've just taken a photograph there for you from the bottom of the road, so the north corner of the road, looking up towards the existing school. Yeah. And again, from the bottom of Hunters Road, looking up through the application site to the existing school. And some further photographs just to show the development of the estate in the surrounding area. Give some context. So the school buildings themselves are set well back from the road, with the pitches being the closest to the residential properties. The key issues identified with the application relate to BNG, archaeology, amenity and highway safety. BNG matters have been resolved and a minimum of 10% net gain will be achieved on site and will be managed for 30 years. The proposal would require some submission of additional archaeological information to make it acceptable. There has been extensive trenched evaluation and mitigation work in the surrounding area for the housing, and significant archaeology was found. So as such, a condition is recommended for further investigation at the school site. We've only received one representation from a neighbouring property in relation to visibility around the corner of Hunters Road. There would be any amenity issues associated with the proposal. In the event that there's noise from the proposed pitches, there is a condition for acoustic fence to be installed at a later date. And just as a clarification, paragraph 53 and 59 of the committee report state the use of the pitch in terms of its hours would be controlled by condition. But after further consideration of the age of the children and the size of the pitches, officers have not deemed that condition necessary anymore. So that's just a slight correction to the report. So the proposed site would accommodate 23 additional parking spaces for 15 staff, providing space for all the additional staff associated with the expansion of the school and improving the current existing shortfall at the school. The proposal does not include a drop-off or pick-up facility. As this is a school extension rather than a new school, this isn't required by policy. And in addition, the site was allocated as part of the overall master plan for housing development, which was approved in 2017. So this was prior to the County Council's developer contribution strategy being adopted. And as such, land wasn't allocated for drop-off and pick-up. The applicant has demonstrated that in order to accommodate a drop-off and pick-up facility, this would result in a shortfall of outdoor space, making the scheme unable to come forward. In any case, there are pedestrian links through the residential areas, and the school's anticipated to provide spaces primarily for children living on the estate, and as such within walking distance. On receipt of additional information regarding staff travel and proposed implementation of a school safety zone, highway officers raise no objection and recommend conditions for the school safety zone and travel. On that slide, so footpath diversion. There is an existing public right-of-way through the site that's already been temporarily diverted whilst the school was developed and has been confirmed as permanently diverted by Newark and Sherwood District Council, but not certified due to some issues with surfacing further along the path. Nonetheless, officers are satisfied this is sufficient for the purposes of this application, and there will be no direct impact on the right-of-way network or the amenity users. So in conclusion, the school extension would serve the local community, allow children to go to school in local areas as per paragraph 100 of the NPPF, which states that it's important that there's a sufficient choice of early years school and post-16 places available to meet the needs of existing new communities. And it also goes on to state that great weight should be given to the need to create, expand or alter early years schools and post-16 facilities. So therefore, Chairman, the application is before you with a recommendation to Grant Planning Commission, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1.
Thank you, Emily. I now invite Mr. Bob Willard to speak as agent for the application. Remind you have 3 minutes, and we will let you know when you have about a minute and 30 seconds left to wind up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. I'm Bob Willard from Planning and Design Group. I'm delighted to speak in support of this proposed expansion of Chuter Primary School. This is a critical project which addresses the significant residential growth in Fernwood over recent years, directly responding to the increased local demand for primary places. This proposed extension is not just timely, but it was anticipated well in advance. The site was specifically identified and reserved within the area's strategic master plan, acknowledging that additional school facilities would be essential as the local community expanded. Now, as the housing developments continue to be occupied and the local population grows, the necessity to do this expansion is clear and it's urgent. The proposed development is designed to expand the school from a 1-form entry to a 2-form entry, involving a well-designed single-storey extension covering about 1,000 square metres. The additional classrooms and dedicated outdoor sports and play areas have been thoughtfully planned to create an optimal educational environment. Careful consideration has been given to potential noise impacts. So there's mechanical ventilation proposed and acoustic fencing incorporated to ensure a comfortable and a pleasant learning environment for pupils and a comfortable environment for residents. We've had extensive collaboration and detailed discussions with your planning officers and the Highway Authority. That's been a fundamental part of developing the scheme. Mrs. Dodd already talked about the issue of parent drop-off provision. There was a lot of careful exploration of various options, but it's been ultimately collectively agreed that the physical constraints of this site, including limited space and the topographic challenges, make the inclusion of a dedicated drop-off facility infeasible in this specific case without having a detrimental impact on play space and sports provision. The Highway Authorities confirmed that the policy regarding the need for drop-off only relates to new school proposals, not existing ones. But despite these constraints, this proposal will enhance the school's current parking provision, creating a surplus of space compared to the additional staff requirements. So there'll be an overall net improvement. To further address potential traffic impacts, the school will implement a detailed travel plan, promoting sustainable active travel methods such as walking and cycling, alongside enhanced facilities for bicycle and scooter storage. Thank you. In conclusion, this essential expansion will provide modern, high-quality educational facilities to support Fernwood's rapidly growing population. If fully supported by national policy, has been positively assessed by your officers and represents a proactive and thoughtful response to community needs. I therefore respectfully urge the committee to support the proposal, ensuring the continued success and the growth of the Fernwood community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Anything the officers wish to add to what's been said? No? In that case, can I open it to the floor for debate? Does anyone have a comment or observation to make? Councillor Owen?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I read this report with incredulity and growing anger, quite frankly, because everything's been done to try and avoid implementing what this committee in particular have always said about developments at new schools. And let's be clear, this is a new school. It's a new school. It was new in 2012, and I think it was one that I opened. I remember going along and talking to the children. It wasn't completed at that time because it wasn't necessary for the extra space, the extra classrooms, in order to accommodate the children on site. And it was always the intention to turn it from a one form into a two form entry school. So let's get away from the idea that it's not a new school. It is. It's an uncompleted new school. And I focus particularly, Chairman, on the issue of a drop-off, pick-up, drop-off facility. We have made it clear, repeatedly made it clear, that that is what we expect, because I think all members around this table are sick and tired of the complaints we get about parking at schools and what can we do about it. And the answer is very little, but one potential solution was certainly with new schools where it was possible to provide a pick-up and drop-off point. And that's what we said should happen. And that's completely been ignored, and somewhat spurious reasons, in my view, have been put up to justify not doing that. I look on page 12 and 13 at County Council highways. They note that there are 15 additional staff and 23 spaces are provided. This is adequate for the new build. But it's disappointing an opportunity has not been taken to address an existing issue, shortfall in spaces for the existing build. And all the spaces will be allocated to the new build. And most tellingly, paragraph 29, you've all read, it is considered a drop-off pickup facility would improve pedestrian safety. Yeah. Pedestrian safety. Yeah. All these children and parents are going to be walking along these wonderful footpaths that you've told us about this morning. Their safety is compromised. Even the county council highways say that. And those of you that are district council members will know it's most unusual to get any comment out of them in highway terms. You know, well, this is a novelty, it really is. But it's acknowledged there is no policy provision for this. Well, there is. There's a policy provision for new schools, and this is a new school. The proposed travel plan, wonderful travel plan, is inadequate and would require clarification, update, and 2 further conditions. Now, we've all come across travel act. You know, is it an active travel plan or just a travel plan? No difference between the two. Years ago, 15 years or more ago, I can remember going around to my local schools as a governor in some of them, sitting down talking about travel plans. You remember, some of you, those of you that have been around long enough, we talked about travel plans. And in order to get the schools to do it, there was a £5,000 bribe at the end of it when they completed it, and they could spend it on what they wanted. And what difference did it make? Not a jot. Not a jot. What's the travel plan? It just says, well, we think people should ride on bikes to schools or walk to schools. Well, yes, if you live just down the road, you can do. But we have a system now in this country where you can apply to any school you want to. And many schools, particularly if they are good schools, will attract people from a considerable distance. And many parents anyway, even that live locally, want to drop their children off at school by car before they go on to work. And it's telling, I think, that the only real support comes from some crackpot group that wants everybody to walk to school and not get into a car. Well, quite frankly, Chairman, I am minded to vote against this. I really am. It annoys me so much. I know that shouldn't be a justification necessarily, because we are losing an opportunity to make things better for the people of that area and to make the journey to and from school safer for children. I don't know whether it's possible at this stage to put a condition on, if we grant approval, that there should be a drop-off and pick-up point included as one of the conditions. I remain open to hearing about that. But I am extremely angry about this, extremely angry that officers are trying to circumvent what members have wanted to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Yes, Jazz, you want to clarify a couple of points for us?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I just wanted to address the committee about a couple of the points that are relevant to your decision-making process here. So, if first I could just touch on the question of whether there is a policy that actually demands this drop-off and pick-up. So, as members will be aware, under Section 70 of the Town and Country Planning Act, you're obliged to have regard to local plan policy. Now, the policy that's referred to here is a developer contributions strategy, which isn't technically a local plan policy. It's not to say it should be ignored, but it's just to create that difference for you to understand that the legislation requires you to, is mandatory to have regard to local plan policy. The developer contribution strategy is a county council policy that doesn't quite have that same bite. Now, leaving that to one side, that policy itself talks about new schools, so obviously members will have to satisfy themselves whether they think this is a new school or not. Obviously, you have your advice ultimately that it's not technically a new school. The land deal that secured the land for this matter was undertaken nearly 14 years ago. So, yeah, that's relevant in terms of understanding why the parcel of land can't accommodate what you'd be seeking today. And just finally, to touch on the request to whether you can put a condition on this application requiring the pick up or drop off. My advice to you is no, it's not reasonable in the circumstances because you're required to look at the application that's in front of you today and judge it against the relevant considerations. And in that context, a condition requiring a pick up and drop off is technically a new application, so it's not a condition that you can impose today. Happy to answer questions, but hopefully that will give a little bit of guidance about some of the relevant considerations today. Thank you.
Could I ask him a question? Ask you a question.
Councillor Areas.
On the paragraph 29, which said that about pedestrian safety, it's made it clear that it said instead of the drop-off point, said it would improve pedestrian safety. But he said there was no problem with vision. So he said that's actually saying it will improve pedestrian safety. Now, so are we, if somebody gets knocked down, would we be liable for not taking that into consideration?
Okay, so what I would say in respect of whether a local authority such as Nottinghamshire County Council could be held liable for the exercise of its statutory function, which in this case is as a local planning authority, my answer to you is no, you wouldn't be able to be held liable in relation to the way in which you exercise this statutory function as a planning authority. There are circumstances when a local authority can be held liable, but they're too complicated to go into and don't really apply to a local to exercise your functions as a planning authority. What I would say in relation to paragraph 29, I think that to a certain extent, I mean, I'll leave it for officers to explain in more detail, but I think that's more a question of interpretation actually, in that it's not saying that it's fundamentally unsafe. I think it's saying that it could be safer, but actually it's safe as is, if you see what I mean. So if you're looking at things and determining actually the standard today is it safe, your advice is that it is safe. But obviously in the comments from the Highways Authority, it could, there are some...
It's safer with the drop point, but not having it, so it's not as safe.
Yeah, effectively, but if you're looking at the standard that you're being asked to judge against today, the argument is that it does meet that standard. Again, happy to answer questions.
Before we move on to another point, do officers want to add anything to Jazz's points?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo what Jazz said about, and appreciate Councillor Owen's comments about his consideration. This is a new school, but clearly this is an existing school site. It would have been identified prior to the first phase of the school being developed back in 2011. This school would ultimately be expanded to this application is seeking to expand today. And the land deal that colleagues in property would have done at that time would have been to have secured a site large enough for a two-form entry school. But at that time, the developed contribution strategy, which was the latest version of which was adopted in April 24, 2024 through consultation through the cabinet member for economic development and asset management. Clearly that requirement wasn't in place. I can understand members' frustration, but ultimately implementing that policy to provide drop-off and pick-up facilities at new schools is going to take some time to filter through. And clearly it's not something that would have been taken into account when the land deal was done, the school site that we're now looking at today.
So it postdates.
It does, yes.
Councillor Fielding, you had your hand up earlier.
Thank you, Chair. I too am disappointed, more than disappointed over the able to have a drop off in the school setting. I think we've all seen the chaos of the drop off and pick up outside various schools. The other question I've got, and again, is to do with recent experience of construction. We've got tiling here of where deliveries to and from the site would be, not to affect the school that is operating there at the minute. But where are the construction staff who are going to erect this going to park? Because recently within my division, I've had an absolute chaos caused by construction people parking in a residential area and causing absolute mayhem. You talk about things will be washed in and off the side for delivery, but that doesn't take into mind if the construction staff park absolutely through the residential area, and it's how is that going to be managed so that we do not have a community that is upset over a considerable period of time while we're constructing what is needed for an extension to a school. Because the last thing you want to do is upset the community around that school. As I say, it's how can we mitigate against that?
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. We have a response. I thought that was conditioned in part of the appendix that construction stuff.
Yes, Chair, part of condition 8 does require a layout of the site, identifying parking provision for construction workers to be provided. That's at the top of page 30. We haven't got those details yet. I don't know whether it's right to ask the applicant if they've got any indications where that might be at the moment.
My understanding was that they would be contained within the actual construction site and not park on.
Well, we should, we will await the matters, the details that are submitted.
Hope that answers your question.
And we would hope that
I would hope that they are, because my experience on previous sites, that hasn't been the case.
Councillor Wheeler, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Avenue. Welcome to Nottingham County Council. Haven't given the chance to welcome you yet. Well, paragraph 18 gives us a bit more commentary on drop-off facility. I do share all the concerns around you, of course, about a lack of such a facility. We all have issues with our own division. I have had business knows I'm living complaints in my own division. I wouldn't use the same language as Philip because he's far, far braver than I am about crackpot organisations, but I do get the drift of what Philip is saying. I assume there's an imminent need for this school. It wasn't in front of us today. I'm assuming that. There are lots of unanswered questions within the body of the report. Unfortunately, I think we just picked up on some, Jonathan. We haven't actually got the information we need yet on construction site, etc., where they're going to be housed. There are further gaps as well which haven't come forth for us. It is a difficult one indeed, because clearly there's a need for the school. We want it to happen. At the same time, there are issues for officers to address with the applicants, who happens to be us anyway, to progress this to a point where it does take into account, where possible, irrespective of what it says in paragraph 18, safety of children. You expect children and parents, etc., to all leave the cars at home, whatever, get on their feet, red red line, ain't gonna happen. See it, own develop on our own patches all the time. It just happened. Great, if it could happen, but that's fine, start. So, just make this comment for now, Chairman, and I'll reflect on my own position as the meeting develops. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. You indicated wish to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just, I mean, you know, the idea of us setting ourselves up again for yet another fall later on, and, you know, I'd say probably one of the most prevalent issues in my inbox this year has been, in fact, this past 4 years, has been school drop-off. In fact, currently, there's a petition about to go through council for a school drop-off outside for a crossing outside of the school because of the dangers that exist with parking outside of schools. Another one of my schools does have a drop-off, but again, and that does ease a significant amount of traffic off that road. And it isn't a complete fix, but it really does help at those key times. And I suppose the other things that we're not talking about, we're talking about admin staff and teaching staff of some 44 in number, with 39 parking spaces being provided. What happens on parenting? Where do the parents park on parenting? You know, where do they go? Where do they go when they're doing school drop-off in the morning? Where do they park? There's no capacity there for any sort of additional people parking on site, other than the actual teaching staff and admin staff. We are missing continually a massive trip because we are stopping the need for future works of this council to put into place. Things that we have to deal with in terms of TROs and things like that around, you know, we have to put double yellow lines in. I've got another school where parents sit with their engines running on double yellow lines. I've got enforcement officers going out to deal with them. I've got parents, you know, sat on zigzag lines with their engines running. Again, we have enforcement and the police going out, enforcement from us to deal with them. And the police deal with the ones that the knock-on effect in the local area. How much additional cost is that costing us as an authority, as in terms of services, because we can't provide a decent drop-off service or a decent parking facility for residents, parents, etc. to use. Councillor Owen makes a cracking point around highways not commenting on applications. It so rarely happens. We're into hen's teeth with this, and the fact that we're seeing this mentioned in here and the safety isn't as good as it could be. Again, I find that bonkers that we're talking about our children and we're not thinking about what's the optimum safety for them. Instead, we're taking a toned down version. Don't get that. That completely bemuses me. We've got 3 material planning considerations that we can utilise in this thing, excluding the drop-off point. They are highway safety, they are traffic, and they are parking. There are 3 things that we can base any objection to this application on that don't fall in the realms of having to deal with drop-off. And the reasoning for those can be numerous. You know, we've got to be thinking about how to better deliver parking at schools. I've spent mornings, afternoons with the police stood outside, directing parents. The police stand there, they get people face to face with them, giving them absolute torrents of abuse because they're getting asked to move on. They get called all sorts of names because we don't create a decent parking facility outside of schools. And I don't know why we're still sitting here now, still not putting decent parking facilities for parents outside schools. It needs to change. And I honestly think the fact we've got quotes on highways in there with concerns, you know, for me, makes this incredibly difficult application to support under those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one thing? Sorry, I just want to ask one thing. Is there going to be any out of hours use in terms for local football teams or anything like that, do we know, at this stage?
Those, no.
No, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to address the committee just quickly on the highway safety point. And what I would say is, I would draw members' attention to paragraph 116 of the National Planning Policy Framework, which is a relevant consideration in any planning application. It says, development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be unacceptable impact on highway safety. Now, technical advice is there is no objection from the Highway Authority here. So I would say that it's quite difficult to frame this highway safety issue as being unacceptable in the context of the technical judgment that's needed. I understand there's an issue, but like I said to you before, it's probably very unfortunately phrased, and actually what they're saying is there is, as it does meet the correct standard because there is no official objection from highways. But obviously, you know, like a lot of things, it's a rough diamond, could be better, could be shaped better. The other point that occurred to me just to mention to members was that members have spoken about the site and what it can and can't accommodate. And I would remind members that if we were, or if you had a different application in front of you, obviously you have to judge what's in front of you. But if you had a different application in front of you that did have a drop-off pickup, you would have statutory objections from other bodies. So it is worth remembering that in the balance that actually, whilst, you know, there are, like any planning application, there are issues to consider here. If you flip it around and look at it from a different angle, you know, you would have another set of issues to deal with if you were dealing with a different application, which is why my advice is always look at this applications in front of you and judge it by reference to the considerations you have. And in that context, well, the test for highways and whether you can refuse something in highways hasn't been met in this.
Parking, what about that?
Parking.
Obviously doesn't need the maximum level, doesn't need the amount of staff that are on site.
I think I'd let my colleagues speak on parking, but I think it does meet the same.
Not quite one-to-one there, but it's a significant existing situation.
It doesn't mean parking.
Technically, your advice is it doesn't, but again, that's the whole judging of a rough diamond kind of scenario, you know, to balance what 50 you like, which 50 you not like, and you know, that's part of the mix.
Thank you.
Councillor Calamari, you were next, I think.
Yes, I am disappointed actually because it was nearly 4 years ago that I brought this up, and I remember when I was county councillor, I got castigated because I was really upset about the fact it's not this school children, the residents who live there. If you were to live in that area close to school and you were to put up with what they put with, it's really horrendous. We've got one school in our area that both Councillor Moxon and I that causes problems, or they've even set a safety committee up to oversee the parking. It's that bad. So, and I'm amazed that the highways have made a comment about it. And God forbid if anything did happen to a child outside that school, you can guarantee that be all right, or that in there would come up. That would we'd be warned that there is a possibility, although a slight one, that it would be better if there was a drop-off point. But I just sometimes get frustrated that I can't imagine sitting down, drawing a plan up, knowing that you're going to come to the planning committee, whoever it is, knowing that we're all going to be all against this because of the plan. How come that you don't try and work around that and put a drop-off point in, or you just totally ignore the residents and the elected members, member states? I don't get that. I don't think it's fair enough. Don't get it, because we're important. We're elected. The residents live there. They're important. And I know your plans are really important, and for the children, it's fantastic. But you're taking no notice of absolutely the residents and the members' views. We want drop-off points, vehicle access at these schools, because we know the problems it causes, the parking on pavements, blocking people in. There have been fights on Stuart Avenue, fights between buses coming down, can't get through, massive problems. And that's only one every school. All I'm saying is, like, I can't put it as eloquently as Councillor Owen, but I tend to agree with what he says. And I'm disappointed that our views aren't being recognised. We don't want to be here. We want these schools to get through because we want the schools. But this, you could have known that this was going to happen. You know, we would have known that. Why didn't you actually, or somebody actually think about it? But that's what this is about. Thank you, Chair.
Gaz, you wanted to
Yeah, I mean,
clarify?
and the members, please accept my apologies for addressing the repeat, to be honest. I'm just want to make sure that we're all looking and considering this right things. What I would say is, I think whilst the pick up and drop off is an issue, absolutely, I think we do need to look at the specifics of this site and leave issues that have occurred on other sites whilst in the back of our minds and informing us only as a background consideration. We need to look at this site particularly. Is there an issue at this site? Have there been issues at this site? Is there, and then this is the bit where, you know, considerations can be relevant. Is there likely to be an issue at this site? And I think that's the key, but we don't have objections from the public. We haven't had objections from local people about this application. It is worth, you know, factoring that into your considerations. And it's issues that have occurred on other sites shouldn't colour your judgment in balancing what's required to balance here. Absolutely, experience is relevant. Saying it's not relevant, it absolutely is. But you do need to look at this site specifically, the application that's in front of you, and whether actually this site can work as presented to you. Obviously, your technical advice is that it can, but I just want you to look at it more on that and this site. Can this site work, rather than the frustrations that generally exist about pickups and drop-offs and complaints you've had on other sites? Does this site work? That's the question. And if the debate focuses on that, you're more likely to get a decision or come to a decision that you'd be more satisfied with.
Thanks, Jazz. Councillor Karima.
Yeah, just to say, I will be supporting it because this site is actually needs a number of children. As for the drop-off points, I agree with everybody says there really should be drop-off points. I disagree with parking. I have problem with parking outside the schools. Drop-off points, different thing. But as already been said, it's this site. The mistake was made 14 years ago when the land wasn't allocated enough for it to work. And as the legal officer's already said, it's going to have these children in it. It needs X amount of teachers. It needs X amount of facilities, and the site lends itself to that. If it would lend itself to actually having a drop-off point, I'd be more than happy. But it's the site as it is at the moment. If we start actually arguing about it and refusing it and asking to put plans in again, we're very possibly going to actually lose any appeal anyway, because the site is predicated on the number of children it's got to actually look after, and that's right and proper. So I will be supporting the site, and I totally agree it should have been sorted out for you. There should have been enough land allocated, so we didn't have this argument. Hopefully, with the guidelines we've got now, there won't be any arguments in the future. But this is what it is, and we have to actually deal with the plans that's in front of us, not a plan we'd like to see or plans in general. So yeah, I agree with everything that's been said about the problems with not having drop-off points. But this is the site we're dealing with. So thank you, Chair. So,
Francis. Oh, sorry, you want to come on, Jonathan?
Yeah, it's just really just come to the point Councillor Camilleri made. We're not ignoring the problem. We actually raised the issue of drop-off and pick-up when we provided when officers provided pre-application advice on this. And as you can see on the screen, on the slide here, this wasn't part of the presentation. The applicant has actually looked at whether a drop-off pick-up facility could be provided. And you can see it there in the, that corner of the site. And it will basically slice up one of the playing pitches in half. And as Jazz mentioned earlier, we probably end up with an objection from sport that we wouldn't be providing sufficient school provision. So again, this does go back to again what Councillor Creamer has alluded to, that this land was allocated for the school back 15 years ago or so, before this policy for providing school drop-off and pick-up came into place. It has been explored. It isn't possible to do it, but we have taken on board what you said, but it's going to take some time for it to filter through. As new developments come forward, sustainability and extensions come forward around the county, where a school site is required, the need for the size of the site to be sufficient to also provide a drop-off pickup facility, that will be drilled home to the developer and it will be provided because it is now part of that developer contribution strategy that we now have in place.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Purdy-Horan, you wanted to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, forgive me. I should have earlier declared that I'm a member of Children and Families Select Committee, which is where this application from the Department of Children and Families, but I've had absolutely no involvement in the application, as Councillor Moxon explained, on a different direction. Mr. Chairman, I hear the criticisms that other councillors have made with regard to parking and drop-off situation. And I quite understand them pulling their punches at some of the remarks made by one particular councillor. I absolutely disassociate myself from those comments. It is not appropriate or even acceptable for us to attack professionals who have worked extremely hard on this particular item and have clearly, as explained in the verbal report this morning, have given great consideration as to the limitations of the site and how they can or cannot quite accommodate what every single county councillor and district and borough councillors, for that matter, have met from their constituents, that there are problems outside schools. But we are where we are on this particular site. As it was mentioned earlier, it was opened in 2012, when I don't recall hordes of parents complaining at that time about school access. It really is a more recent phenomenon, certainly in my experience. And I do absolutely accept the explanations this morning from officers. And whilst I struggle with the parking and drop-off situation, like us all, I think we have to focus, as Mr. Lyle suggests, on the primary motive for this application, and it is the education of children. If we reject this application, how long will it be before we can resolve the issues in the Fernwood area? And you know, committees like this is about taking hard choices, difficult choices, and this is a difficult choice. But on balance, I am prepared, like Councillor Creamer, to support the application because the primary objective is to improve the education facilities in that part of Newark, which I know is badly needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy-Horan. Councillor Adams, you indicated you want a second bite of the cherry.
It's okay, thank you. All I wanted to check is that we are the applicant, Nottinghamshire County Council is the applicant, and so just in the situation that a mission is refused by the planning committee, we would appeal against ourselves. How would that work? What would be the process?
Yeah. Just to be clear,
Explain that for us.
the right of appeal isn't available when you have an application made in the plan under the general regulation. So technically there is not a right of appeal when council applies to itself.
So what would happen? Sorry, can you just confirm?
It would just be refused and the matter would die. I mean,
have to come back.
yeah, I mean, that's the technical answer.
Thank you.
Councillor Moxon.
Yeah, thank you. I sort of sit here agreeing with most of what people have said, as I was really disappointed with what Councillor Purdy-Horan just said, suggesting that people were being effectively disrespectful to officers, which I don't think anybody has been this morning. So I really think you should take those comments back. But regardless of that, this is a difficult situation, as has already been mentioned by colleagues, and particularly with Councillor Camilleri talks about something that's on the border of our two divisions, where fights have occurred, people have driven over gardens, and sort of all hell breaks loose on a daily basis every morning and afternoon. That said, I appreciate everything that's also been said and brought up by Councillor Creamer in terms of this is a problem that happened 15 years ago, and we're sort of stuck with the land that we've got now, and there might not be the space to actually adequately put in a turning circle. But I think it's a long time since I've read through a report where Highways has made so many comments, and they're all negative. Every comment that Highways has made is negative. There's not enough parking. That there's that there should be a turning circle, and they're clearly saying in that very clearly put that it's not as safe as it would be if there was a turning circle in it. But how much clearer they could have been with that, whilst accepting that isn't a reason to turn down an application. I don't think they could have put it any clearer than it is not as safe. And so I take the point that people have said this morning that our concern should be about the number of school places and having the right education for people in the right place at the right time. But another of our concerns should be the safety of our children. In fact, I would argue that should come just above their rights to have a good education in the right place at the right time. They should be able to do that in a safe manner. We should put everything in place to do that safely. So I'm really conflicted on this one. I get the legal position. I really understand that. But I understand that previously we've put in a motion to the county council that was accepted in terms of having for all new applications having a drop-off zone, turn circle, etc. And I get that this is one of those circumstances where it's a new school, but it's not a new school, and it's a bit of a mishmash in that. But at the end of the day, that is what we should really be doing. Highways couldn't have put it better. In fact, they have said it a lot better than I've tried to say it this morning. There isn't enough parking spaces. Again, Highways disappointed that they haven't used the opportunity to increase the number of parking spaces on site. There isn't enough parking spaces currently at the site, and they're not doing anything about it in the future. And that's without things like what Councillor Adams said about parents even and that sort of thing. So I'm really conflicted on this one. Don't know what to do.
To make your mind up. Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Jonathan, did you want to come back? No, I don't think at the moment. You're happy? Yeah.
He's not happy.
Well, you're not happy, but I mean, there's nothing you want to clarify. That's it, members. Does anybody wish for a recorded vote? No. In that case, can we move the officer's recommendations? All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Don't think so. Thank you. Debate and vote is now concluded. I can say that the recommendations are carried and the application is approved. Go before we start the next item. I don't know. Thank you. Then if we move on to agenda item 6, which is the consideration of planning application for the extension to materials recycling building and minor changes to the external layout, including relocation of HGV parking, new storage bays, and the recommendations are set out in the report. Can I have a seconder, please? Second, Councillor Purdy-Horan, thank you. And I'll invite Jonathan Smith, Team Manager, Development Management, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. This application proposal is for the extension to a materials recycling building and minor changes to the external site layout, including relocation of HGV parking and new storage bays at ENVA Private Road number 4 in Colwick. The site is located within the southeastern end of the Colwick Industrial Estate, accessed from the A612 Colwick Loop Road. The facilities at ENVA are located on both sides of Private Road number 4, with the application site itself located within Unit 1, just north of the River Trent. Planning permission is sought to develop a further extension to the existing materials recycling facility building to accommodate a new multi-waste recycling plant. The new plant would enhance material separation and recovery, with a higher percentage of materials being recycled, thereby driving more waste up the waste hierarchy and reducing volume exposed at landfill sites or energy from waste facilities. The proposed extension is to the west of the existing MRF building and would measure 58 by 51 metres, so would add a further 2,975 square metres of additional floor space. The extension would match the cladding on the existing building, being Moorland green, and the roof clad in the same material in order to blend in with its immediate surroundings. Roof lights will be incorporated into the roof structure to maximise natural light into the building. The current MRF building covers an area of approximately 7,700 square metres, and a further permitted extension to the east will take this up to close to 8,500 square metres. The proposed extension would therefore add around 35% additional floor space to the facility. The wider industrial area comprises predominantly industrial businesses, including heavy industrial and commercial and other active waste management sites. The development would therefore be consistent with surrounding uses, which you can see on the slide there. The proposed development aims to increase the percentage of materials recycled, meaning that the site would still accept broadly the same tonnage permitted through extant permissions, and there will be no material changes to the number of HGV movements to and from the site, and therefore no adverse impact on traffic conditions in the surrounding area. The proposed development will protect the existing local workforce, and an additional 8 staff will be employed to ensure waste recovery is maximised. The development represents a significant investment in modern recycling technology, supporting the circular economy and sustainability and improving productivity. The application received no objection from Gedning Borough Council and no comments from neighbours. The site lies within flood zone 2, which suggests a medium risk of flooding. However, the site is protected by the River Trent flood defences. To mitigate this residual risk, the development has been designed to be floodable and flood resilient. The picking stations located in the upper levels of the new sorting plant would serve as an emergency refuge area, pending assistance from emergency services. The Environment Agency has confirmed that they are satisfied with this approach. The proposals are considered to comply with the waste score strategy, and in particular policies WCS 1, 3, 4, 8 and 10, which seek to prioritise recycling in existing industrial locations, and policy WCS 15 on delivering good design. It's recommended that permission be granted, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. I open the floor now for debate. Any members wish to comment or ask any questions of officers before we move on? Councillor Adams?
Yeah, just can you just, for the purpose of, just to ensure I'm getting this right, exactly what types of waste we're talking about specifically?
It's in here somewhere. paragraph 14. So yeah, the new multi-waste recycle plant would enhance material separation and recovery with a higher percentage of soils and fines, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, brick, hardcore and wood being captured, whilst the following materials would be recovered for recycling for the first time: film, fibre, paper and cardboard, rigid plastics, and then lots of different types of polythene.
So no food, no waste like that, is there, according to that, looking at that?
No, but my suspicion will be as separate food waste collection comes forward, which the government are proposing, then facilities like these will probably need to adapt in order to take those deliveries.
Just on that, they need to seek additional permissions to be able to run food waste through that site.
Do we condition the actual types of materials? It might certainly need to change their environmental permit from the Environment Agency. I'm not sure whether there's actually a condition. I don't know whether there's a condition on the extant permission, which sometimes, quite a lot of the time on waste sites, we do condition what types of waste materials they can bring in. Clearly, there are means to where you can vary those permissions. So yeah, if they need that flexibility to deal with different waste streams, then they can submit plan applications to do that.
But they need an environmental permit, wouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And a new application, sorry.
Quite. If it's not, if there are restrictions already in terms of the waste types they can use, then yes, they would need to vary that plan permission in order to do it.
Just for information, it may or not be a business problem down there, but on the diagram itself, you can see 3 domes across the road from it. That is the biodigester.
Yeah.
It's working at the moment.
That's right.
So there'll be 2 side by side. I don't know if the Environment Agency, that's not our problem at the moment. But there is already a biodigester there.
Anyone else? No? Are we content to move to the vote then? All in favour of the officer's recommendations? Anyone against? No? That's unanimous then. Therefore, the application is approved. We move on then to agenda item 7, which is the Development Manager Progress Report. Jonathan, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. This is the usual report we bring to committee. As you alluded to earlier, Chair, at the moment, there's nothing scheduled for committee on the 22nd of April. Pre-agenda papers, if there are any, will need to be finalised by the 25th of March. So if there isn't any business, we will be able to let you know as soon as possible after that date. But no, happy to take any other questions than I have on that paper.
Anyone wish to comment or question anything in the report? No, in that case, can we move the recommendation? Seconded, all in favour? That's carried then, thank you. That concludes the meeting. Therefore, you may cease the recording. Thank you. Free to speak. I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't.
In that case,
That's why, but that's